A week later, the cease-and-desist letter landed. Stiff paper, black ink, Vera's signature scrawled at the bottom. Halt all construction. Fence violates HOA bylaws. Remove, or we will. I watched Tom's jaw tighten as he read it, his knuckles whitening around his coffee mug. Tear down? I'd like to see him try, he growled, tossing it on the counter. Clara smirked, already pulling out her legal pads. They won't, they can't. This vote's fishy, and I'll prove it. Who was this Vera chick, and what kind of fight was she picking with us? Could you drop 1 like for me? It's a massive spark for my channel, and I'm so thankful for you all. Thank you. The Michigan air hit crisp and clean as I stepped onto the front porch of our new house, a big corner lot in the fanciest subdivision around. Pine trees whispered nearby, and the lawn stretched wide, fresh-cut grass begging for something more than just a mower's hum. My folks, Clara and Tom, had traded up from our old spot a block over, ditching the scrappier side of the neighborhood for this quiet slice of something better. White siding gleamed under the sun, windows wide enough to drink in the light, and I could feel the shift, military base life fading behind us. George's sticky heat and sweet tea drop-ins were long gone. Here, folks barely waved unless you caught them tending their perfect yards. We'd bounced around growing up, army orders dragging us from post to post, but this move felt different. Clara and Tom had their eyes on settling, building something hours after years of packing and saluting. The subdivision hugged a lake, splitting the crowd into lake people with docks, and us, the backyard dreamers. Clara wanted a pool, nothing wild, just a cool patch of blue to beat the summer haze. Tom had his heart set on a fence, solid, sharp, a must for pool safety in Michigan. They'd sketched it out over breakfast, coffee mugs steaming, laughing about barbecues and cannonballs. I could see it, kids splashing, burgers sizzling, a little haven after all the uprooting. But this place had rules, HOA rules, tighter than base regs ever were. Vera ran the show, a woman with a sharp tongue and a blazer always buttoned up, like she was guarding some sacred kingdom. I'd seen her once, strutting by the lake, clipboard in hand, barking at a guy about his overgrown shrubs. The board followed her lead, a pack of grumps pushing a park aesthetic. Open lawns, no fences, a green sweep right to the water's edge. Clara caught wind of it early, spotting a flyer tacked up near the mailboxes. New bylaws, fresh off some vote, banning backyard fences. Harmony over clutter. It preached, like we were ruining her postcard. Tom snorted when she showed him, leaning back in his chair. They're kidding, right? No fence, no pool. Michigan don't play that. Clara frowned, flipping through the flyer, her teacher-turned-lawyer brain already ticking. Says they voted it in last month. Majority rules. But sloppy, too quick, too vague. She'd sniffed out trouble before. Back in Georgia, she'd shut down a base quartermaster over a busted lease with that same quiet fire. I watched her tuck the flyer away, already plotting, while Tom sipped his coffee, unfazed. Let him try enforcing it, he muttered, a grin tugging at his lips. Trouble landed fast. A week in, boxes still stacked inside when a cease-and-desist letter hit. Stiff paper, black ink, Vera's signature scrawled at the bottom like a taunt. Halt all construction. Fence violates HOA bylaws. Remove, or we will. Tom read it aloud, voice low, his knuckles whitening around his mug. Tear down? I'd like to see him try, he growled, tossing it onto the counter like trash. Clara smirked, pulling out her legal pads, pen already scratching. They won't, they can't. This vote's fishy, and I'll prove it. I'd seen that look, calm, fierce, a storm brewing under the surface. We tried nice first, Clara called Vera, voice smooth, offering a compromise. White vinyl, clean lines, not some junky chain link, she said, pitching it like a peacemaker. Vera cut her off cold. No fences, ruins the view, she snapped, like our yard was her personal canvas to dictate. Tom took a swing next, cornering a bored guy by the mailboxes, gray hair, stiff nod, same line, Vera's call. Whispers floated up, neighbors griping about swing sets denied. A house sale tank caused a buyer with kids couldn't fence their lot. The HOA wasn't bending, and Vera was the wall we kept slamming into. That night, I stood in the yard, lake breeze brushing past, the empty space begging for our pool. Clara's voice drifted from the kitchen, phone buzzing, papers rustling, while Tom tinkered with a toolbox, humming some old army tune. This wasn't just a house. It was our stake, our ground, after years of moving on command. Vera thought she could scare us off with letters and rules, flex her HOA crown like it meant something. She didn't know Clara's brain could outsmart a general, or Tom's hands could build through hell. The fight was coming, and I'd watch it unfold. Step one in a war she'd never see coming. The backyard smelled of vinyl and damp earth, the new white fence cutting a sharp line under a cloudy Michigan sky. I leaned against it, the panels cool and smooth, watching Tom wrestle a pool pump into place. Hoses coiled tight, ready to hum. Clara sat at the patio table, legal pads fanned out, coffee mug pinning down that second cease-and-desist letter, Vera's handwriting glaring up like a challenge. We'd built anyway, called their bluff, and the HOA wasn't playing nice. They'd lawyered up, set a boardroom meeting, and the air crackled with the showdown creeping closer. Our fence stood defiant, and I could already see the pool's blue shimmer behind it. Our slice of home, no matter what Vera threw at us. Tom wiped his brow, grinning at the pump. She'll be singing by tomorrow. Fence or not, we're swimming soon. Clara glanced up, pen tapping a page. Not if Vera's got a say. She's pushing this legal action hard. I'd seen him like this, Tom's bull-headed streak locking horns with Clara's razor-sharp mind. Military life had forged that. Dig in, hold fast, and this fancy subdivision wasn't ready for the combo. The fence gleamed, a crisp wall around our yard, and I pictured burgers sizzling, water splashing. Ours, not Vera's to snatch. She'd been a pest from the jump, blazer crisp, voice cutting, strutting like she owned every blade of grass to the lake. Her board trailed her, old guys obsessed with their park aesthetic. No fences, no clutter, just green rolling free. Michigan law didn't care. Pools needed fences, safety first, but Vera didn't budge. Clara offered a classy fix. White vinyl, not some rusty eyesore, and Vera shot it down. Offensive to the view, she'd barked, like our lot was her private mural. Tom tried too, chatting up a board guy by the curb. Same shrug, Vera's words law. Neighbors griped. Pete's deck got axed. Mrs. Kim's buyer bailed over a fence denial. Vera wasn't just strict, she was a control freak, and we were her next target. That week, I'd tag along to the county recorder's office, Clara's hunch, chasing the bylaws bones. The clerk handed over a binder, dusty, official, the real deal. Clara flipped through, finger landing on a voting rule. Changes needed a majority of all lots, not just a roomful of hands. Look here, Miles, she said, eyes glinting. Their vote was half-baked, didn't hit the lot count. It's a plurality, means it's dead. I grinned, catching on. So Vera's rules are fake? She nodded, fierce. Fake is a bad check. I'll nail him on it. Back home, she dug in, phone calls, notes, a case building fast. Tom kept the yard alive, posts sunk, gate hung, pool gear piling up. He'd shrug off the notices like dust, muttering, built tougher stuff under fire. But it was more a stand, a root after years of shifting ground. Clara matched it, her law brain spinning circles around Vera's threats. She called the HOA once, voice like steel. Check your records. Votes bunk. Back off. Vera laughed, high sharp, saying, we've got lawyers, sweetie. See you in court. Don't move. Clara hung up, smirking, already pulling neighbors into the fold. Pete, Mrs. Kim, stories of Vera's tyranny stacking up. The lawyer letter landed next. Fancy threats about costs and teardowns. Tom taped it up, doodled a tank on it, his laugh, not his plan. Don't need firepower when your mom's got the law, he said, nudging me. Clara tapped me for the meeting. Tom's temper stayed home, his southern hospitality shotgun too. You're my backup, Miles, she said, packing her binder. Gonna watch him squirm. I nodded, polo and cargoes ready, clueless but pumped. The fence stood finished, pool gear waiting, Vera's stop ignored. We'd gone full throttle, and she'd swung back hard. That night, I walked the fence line, lake breeze rustling the pines, the white vinyl glowing soft. Clara's voice hummed from the kitchen, phone buzzing, papers shuffling, while Tom tinkered, unfazed. This was us, military roots, no folding. Vera thought her letters could scare us. Her boardroom could break us. She didn't get Clara's brain, law school honed, general tested, or Tom's hands, steady through chaos. I'd grown up watching him win, and this was next. The meeting loomed, a rented space, Vera's smug crew, and Clara's quiet storm. She'd rip their rules apart, and I'd be there, eyes wide, soaking in the fall. The backyard glowed under a soft Michigan dusk, the white vinyl fence standing like a silent guard around the half-built pool. Pipes snaked across the dirt, the liner still folded in its box. I sat on the patio steps, a soda fizzing in my hand, watching Tom tinker with a hose clamp, his hands steady as ever. Clara was inside, kitchen table buried under papers, bylaws, notes, a county binder she turned into her war chest. The HOA's lawyer meeting was tomorrow, a boardroom showdown Vera'd set to flex her muscle. Our fence wasn't budging, and neither were we. Clara had the ammo, and Tom had the grit. Me? I was just along for the ride, back up for the reckoning brewing fast. Clara had been on it all week, piecing it together like a puzzle only she could solve. That trip to the county office had struck gold. Official bylaws, not Vera's flimsy flyer, showed the vote for her no-fence rule was a bust. Majority of lots, she'd read aloud, underlining it in red. Not votes cast, lots. They didn't hit the number. Means it's void. Tom grinned, wiping grease off his hands. So they got nothing? She nodded, fierce. Nothing legal, bunch of hot air and bad math. I'd watched her dig deeper. Phone calls to neighbors, cross-checking dates, building a case tighter than a drum. Tom kept the yard moving, fence post set, gate hung, pool gear stacking up. He'd shrug off the notices like flies, muttering, built stronger stuff under worse orders. But I saw the spark in him. This wasn't just a project. It was a stand. Military life had drilled that in. Hold your ground. No retreat. Clara matched it, her law brain spinning circles around Vera's bluster. She'd called the HOA office once, voice calm as steel. Check your records. Vote's invalid. Back off. Vera laughed. Actually laughed, saying, "We've got lawyers, sweetie. See you in court." Big mistake. Neighbors started talking, quiet chats over mailboxes, whispers at the lake dock. One guy, Pete from 2 streets over, swung by with coffee and a story. "They killed my deck last year. Too tall," they said. "Offer to shrink it." Still no. Vera's running a dictatorship. Another lady, Mrs. Kim, said her buyer bailed. Kids needed a fence. HOA said nope, deal died. "She's got the board wrapped around her finger," Pete added, shaking his head. I related to Clara, and she jotted it down, eyes narrowing. Pattern of power trips helps our case. The HOA wasn't just picky, they were bullies, and Vera was the ringleader. The lawyer letter sat on the counter. Fancy threats about costs and compliance. Tom taped it up, doodled a tank on it. His joke, not his plan. "Don't need firepower when your mom's got the law," he'd said, clapping my shoulder. Clara tapped me for the meeting instead. Tom's temper was a wild card, and his southern hospitality shotgun stayed home. "You're my second set of eyes, Miles," she'd said, packing her binder. "Watch him squirm." I nodded, half excited, half nervous. Polo and cargos weren't boardroom gear, but I'd manage. That night, I walked the fence line, the lake's ripple a faint hum past the trees. The post stood solid, white against the fading light, a wall Vera couldn't crack. Clara's voice drifted out. Phone call with Pete, double-checking dates. Tom hummed by the pool, wrench clinking on metal, unfazed by tomorrow's fight. This was us, military roots, no surrender. Vera thought her blazer and bylaws could scare us off, thought a cease-and-desist meant we'd fold. She didn't get it. Clara'd face down brass, Tom built through chaos, and I'd grown up watching him win. The boardroom loomed, a rented space at some eatery, stuffy suits, Vera's smug crew, and Clara's quiet storm. I'd seen her prep, every page marked, every hole in their rules circled. She wasn't just defending a fence. She was tearing down a tyrant, brick by brick. Tom stayed back, trusting her to swing. Me? I'd witness it. See the HOA's puffed-up pride deflate when she dropped the truth. The fence stood tall, the pool waited, and Vera's reckoning was hours away. She'd picked the wrong family to bully, and we'd make damn sure she remembered it. The boardroom smelled of coffee and old wood, a rented space above a local diner, all stiff chairs and a long table under buzzing lights. I sat next to Clara, my polo and cargoes out of place among the suits, her binder open like a loaded gun. Vera perched across from us, blazer crisp, lips tight, flanked by a row of gray-haired board guys, puffed up, glaring like we'd crashed their club. Her lawyer, a skinny guy with a shiny tie, shuffled papers, tossing smug looks our way. The white fence and half-built pool loomed in my mind, solid as ever. Vera had brought the fight here, and Clara was ready to end it. The lawyer kicked off, voice slick. Mr. and Mrs. last name. Your fence violates HOA bylaws. New rules, voted in fair. We've got costs, legal fees, enforcement, and you'll cover him. Tear it down, or we will. He slid an invoice over, numbers bold, like that'd scare us. Vera leaned back, arms crossed, a smirk twitching. Thought she'd won before we'd even started. I glanced at Clara, calm, pen in hand, eyes sharp. She'd faced worse than this crew. Military brass had nothing on her quiet fire. She cut in, voice steady. What makes you think your rule's legal? The room stilled, head swiveling. Vera's lawyer blinked. Ma'am, we voted majority approved. Clara slid the county binder forward, pages crisp, and flopped it open. Really? 'Cause this says otherwise. She tapped a line, bylaws official stamped. Changes need a majority of all lots, not just votes cast. Your majority was what, 10 guys a room? That's a plurality, votes void. Papers rustled, stammering filled the air. I bit back a grin. Clara was rolling, and they didn't see it coming. Vera's face tightened, but she waved a hand. We followed procedure. Rules are rules. Clara didn't flinch, flipping to another page. Procedure? This says you didn't record it. County's got nothing on your no-fence gig. And Michigan law? Pools need fences. Safety trumps your park fantasy. You botched the vote, skipped the law, and now you're billing me. She leaned forward, voice low. You didn't even read your own bylaws. Thought you could bluff us out. Not happening. The lawyer fumbled. Well, intent was. Clara cut him off. Intent don't make it legal. Facts do. The board guys shifted, suits wrinkling, muttering to each other. Vera's smirk was gone, replaced by a scowl, her fingers drumming the table. I caught one guy, big mustache, red tie, whispering to the lawyer, who looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Clara kept going, smooth as a blade. You've got no ground. Vote's fake, rules dead. I won't pay a dime. Not for your lawyer, not for your threats. We're done here. She stood, binder under her arm, and nodded at me. Time to roll. The lawyer sputtered. Wait, you'll hear from us. Vera shoved an invoice at her, voice sharp. You're liable. Clara waved it off like a fly, marching out, me trailing fast. Outside, the air hit cool, diner grease wafting up from below. Clara smirked, binder hugged tight. Their toast smiles didn't know their own game. I laughed, still buzzing. You shredded him, saw it in their faces. She'd walked in calm, dropped the truth like a bomb, and left them scrambling. Vera thought her blazer and board could bully us, didn't count on Clara's law school brain slicing through their mess. I'd watched, wide-eyed, as she turned their smug into shock, pure gold. Back home, the fence gleamed under the porch light, pool gear stacked and waiting. Tom met us at the door, coffee in hand. How'd it go? Clara grinned. They're done. Votes bunk, no power. Fence stays. He chuckled, clapping my shoulder. Told ya, your mom's a tank. I nodded, picturing Vera's crew, red-faced, fumbling, invoice flapping useless. They'd swung with lawyers and threats, thinking we'd cave. Claire had flipped it, used their own rules to gut him. The pool was next, water ready to flow, and Vera's reign was cracking. She'd pushed too far, and we'd pushed back, harder, smarter, and right where it hurt. The backyard buzzed with summer's last gasp. The new pool shimmering blue under a late August sun. Water lapped against fresh tiles, a little slide curving into the deep end. Tom's idea, finished with a grin and a wrench. The white vinyl fence stood proud, framing it all, a clean line against the green sprawl beyond. I lounged on the patio, a lemonade sweating in my hand, watching Clara flip burgers on the grill, smoke curling up to mingle with the lake breeze. Neighbors milled around, Pete with a beer, Mrs. Kim with a tray of cookies, laughter bouncing off the water as kids splashed and shrieked. Vera's reign was rubble now, and this pool party was our victory lap. The boardroom beatdown had flipped the script. Clara's smackdown, void vote, fake bylaws, left Vera and her crew scrambling. They tried one last gasp, a letter threatening further action, but Clara had laughed it off, filing a counterclaim with the county. Abuse of power, harassment, the works. The HOA folded fast, lawyer dropped, invoice scrapped, Vera's blazer no match for Clara's binder. Word spread like wildfire, neighbors whispering over fences, lake folks nodding at us by the dock. The board shrank back, Vera sidelined, her park aesthetic a punchline now. Tom got the pool running days later, pump humming, water sparkling, a middle finger to every cease and desist. Told you we'd swim, he'd said, tossing me a towel. Clara watched from the patio, smirking as he cannonballed in, soaking the deck. She'd turned the win into more, called a meeting with Pete and Mrs. Kim, pushed for a real vote. This time, it was legit. Majority of lots, not Vera's rig crew. Fences passed, pools too, Michigan law waved through, no aesthetic nonsense to stop it. The subdivision exhaled, yards popping with swing sets and privacy screens. Vera's grip gone for good. She didn't vanish quiet. Sold her lake house a month back. For sale sign stabbed into her perfect lawn. Pete said she'd raged at the realtor, blaming troublemakers. Us, obviously. I'd seen her once, driving out, blazer swapped for sweatshirt, glaring at our fence like it had personally insulted her. Good riddance. The board reshuffled. New faces, less bluster, and the lake crowd softened, some even waving now. Clara's win wasn't just ours. It cracked the HOA shell, let folks breathe again. The party kicked off at noon. Grills sizzling, speakers thumping, water guns blasting. I manned the slide, shoving off with a whoop, cool water swallowing me whole. Clara flipped patties, apron smudged, laughing with Mrs. Kim about Vera's aesthetic flop. Tom floated in the deep end, beer balanced on a raft, hollering at Pete to jump in. Build it ourselves. Damn right we're using it, he yelled, splashing loud. Neighbors brought potlucks, corn on the cob, brownies, a cooler of pop, turning our yard into a patchwork of chatter and cheers. It felt like base life again, community, not control. I climbed out, dripping, and grabbed a burger, juicy, smoky, perfect. Clara sat beside me, plate in hand, watching the chaos. Worth it? I asked, nodding at the pool. She grinned, fierce. Every second. Nobody bullies us out of what's ours. Tom swam up, leaning on the edge. Hell yeah. Should have seen her face when you walked out, Miles. Pure panic. I laughed, picturing Vera's scowl, her lawyer floundering. Clara gutted M with a smile. Military grit plus law school smarts. She was unstoppable, and Tom built the proof right here. As dusk crept in, stars winked on. The fence glowing soft under string lights Clara had strung up. Kids dried off, neighbors lingered, the lake a dark shimmer past the trees. This wasn't just a pool. It was our stand, our home, after years of orders and uprooting. Vera had swung with letters and lawyers. Thought we'd crumble like her bylaws. She didn't know Clara could outsmart a general, or Tom could build through a storm, or that I'd soak it all in, learning what it meant to fight and win. The grill cooled, music faded, and I floated one last time, water cradling me under the night sky. Vera was gone, her rules dust, and our yard thrummed with life she'd try to choke. We turned her power trip into our payback, splashing, laughing, owning every inch. Military families don't bend, and this one, we swam right over her. And there you have it. Vera's HOA empire crashed, her bylaws busted, and Miles' family turned a cease and desist into a poolside bash. Clara's legal knockout sent Vera packing. Fence up, pool sparkling, and the neighborhood free from her park-obsessed grip. Tom's grit built it, Clara's smarts won it, and Miles got a front row seat to the sweetest payback, splashing right in Vera's face. Thanks for riding this wild wave with me. I hope it fired you up like it did me. Here's the takeaway. When bullies flex fake rules, dig in and fight back. Smarter, not just louder. Your home's your castle. Don't let anyone tear it down. Love this? Smash that like button. It's a huge boost, and I'm so grateful for you all. Drop a comment. Ever faced an HOA tyrant or scored a win like this? I'm all ears. This proves military grit and a sharp mind can topple any power trip. Vera learned late, but she learned hard. Stick around. More tales of petty revenge and epic showdowns are coming your way. Catch you next time. Keep your ground, 'cause nobody defends it like you do.